Hello everyone and welcome back to my personal finance channel, Your Friendly Budgetarian. Hi, if you are new here in my channel, I have been creating videos about personal finance as well as documenting my path towards financial freedom. And so with that, I'm starting it off by paying 6 figures worth of student loans. So if you guys are interested, please click the subscribe button down below. For today's video, I will be continuing on the second part for my first of my mini series project, Road to 100K, wherein I talk about what directions I want to take towards reaching my first $100,000 net worth. So without further ado, let's get started for the second part of my budgeting 101. So for the next step, this is kind of optional, but this is for people who have debts or loans. There are so many types of loans out there. There's consumer debts, student loans, car loans, personal loans from like family and friends, and also mortgage. So obviously you want to include all of those debts into your budget. And actually I've already made a video about my debt on how I paid off about $137,000 worth of student loans. So I will link it in the description box below or in the title cards. But the only thing that you would need to know is that you would want to find a way to insert your debt payoff as part of your budget. So when you include that into your budget, you would want to have at least a minimum payment for those debts, because if you don't even meet the minimum payments, you will just accrue more interest, and obviously you don't want that. And even with the minimum payments, sometimes it's not even helping out, just because of the fact that I know certain like loans have set a minimum payment, but it even doesn't cover like the whole interest payment nor the principal payment. So you want to make sure that you also, look at the whole thing. So are you just paying off just the interest alone, or are you also paying the interest plus the principal payment? So if anything, it's even better that you include extra payment towards debt in your budget if you can. Otherwise, you would get into the problem of, if I am not meeting those minimum payments, then that means that it's either there's something wrong in my budget that I need to further deduct, like if you're paying extra for like, say, for personal stuff, or like if there's any subscription fees that you don't even need anymore, or you have a problem with your income that you probably would need to increase it. So yeah, again, I will link it in the description box below about how I tackle about debt payments further in that video. So I would say probably just watch that video first. The next part is, if you don't have any debts, then you probably would want to save up for your savings or sinking funds or retirements. So knowing how much you would want to spend for your retirement is probably not everyone talks about that. And obviously it's retirement, especially if like you just started working, you have a long way to go before retirement. But honestly, it's very important that you kind of already know how much you will have in retirement. So right now, whichever point you are at your life, it's probably good to talk about it, or at least be aware on how much you need to save up for your retirement. So there are definitely different calculators out there. Just Google it, search for it, and you will see how much you need to save up for your retirement. And again, there are options with regards to your 401k. If you do have an employer, or if you are self-employed, there are different retirement accounts out there. but the most common is 401k. So sometimes for employers, they would even do a match for your contributions. So some of them even match 1:1 for up to 6%. I know at least with my employer, they match 1:1 for up to 3%, and the next 4 and 5%, they only do 1 to 1/2. So, I mean, it just really depends on your employer, but it's definitely important if you research about it. If you don't have any information of that at all, or if you probably forgotten that during your orientation week with your employer, definitely reach out to your HR. They should be able to help you out to know what benefits you have from your employer. And with regards to savings, so for example, you're trying to save up for a certain purchase, like a big purchase, like let's say a car, and you have at least maybe a year or 2 years to save up for it with either a new or used one. So stashing your cash in a savings, in like a regular savings account, like the big brick and mortar banks, like, you know, this and that, would probably not be enough, just because of the interest rate that these banks have. So I would probably definitely recommend that you save it up in a high yield savings account. Honestly, I did not know about this since probably about a year or almost 2 years ago. I did not know that these exist, and they have been existing for so many years now. But since personal finance was not really taught to us at a young age, so we're really not aware that these things exist. So right now, for my sinking funds, I do stash it in a high yield savings account, because again, they have a better interest rate compared to the brick and mortar banks. Although technically right now, since, you know, with all what's been happening in the world, it's not really great interest per se as compared to the inflation that we have right now. Right now, probably the highest with a high yield savings account is about, on average, is about 1%. But the inflation rate that we have right now, at least here in the US, is about 6 to 7%. So you are technically losing money, but compared to the interest rates that are offered from the big banks, it's definitely not a lot. So there's still definitely risks when investing your money, but the sooner you start, the better. So when you start young, you can take the hits or downfalls, like the ones that we have right now in the market. But as you grow older, you can lean towards the more conservative type of investment, such as bonds, so that you won't risk as much money once you are nearing your retirement age. On a side note, there's also this thing that we call FIRE. So what is FIRE? Is financial independence, retire early. And there are so many videos here on YouTube that talks about different types of FIRE and like what stage you would want to be at. And so for me, it really just boils down to knowing what kind of lifestyle you will have by the time you retire, and also if you are able to afford it. So definitely think about that when you're budgeting on how much you would want to contribute each month. And again, I have definitely lots of budgeting videos here on my channel. If you guys don't have any idea on how to put it as in a big statement or something, definitely watch my videos about budgeting so you guys will have an idea on how I do mine. So one other thing that some people might not talk about is saving up for your emergency fund. Now, again, some people probably won't be able to include this in their budget just because it's so limited. But for those who can and are able to, I would definitely think about also contributing a bit of your income into an emergency fund. So basically, this is a type of money that you don't touch at all except for emergency purposes. So what would be the types of emergency? It's not because you lack payment for when you overshopped for your clothes, that is definitely not an emergency. The emergency is, for example, you had like a storm or a flood in your house and you were not able to save up for a house maintenance, or you were still starting to save up for your house maintenance fund, so you can use your emergency fund for that. Or for example, you had a flat tire and you can use your emergency fund for that. So definitely this is the money that you don't touch until there is an actual emergency. So typically people, on average, people would save up for at least about 3 to 6 months worth of emergency funds. And I think that should be enough, but it also depends on the type of work that you have. If you know that you do have a stable job or a stable income, you would probably want to go on the lower end, unlike maybe 3 to 6 months. But like, let's say you work like per contract, then it's probably good to have at least you saving up for a 12-month emergency fund. Again, it all differs in the circumstances that you are in, but I think it's important that you have an emergency fund on hand, again, if in case an emergency happens. All right, so now that we have talked about the different things that you would want to include in your budget, which are mainly your expenses and then your monthly income, and then if you have any debt, any contributions for retirement or savings, and then lastly for your emergency fund, now you have to come up with a plan. If you know your numbers already, this will definitely probably be easy for you. Personally though, for me, it took months or even maybe at least a year to be able to know how to fully come up with a plan with regards to my budget. So I started around August of 2020 and I was doing like a paper and pen notebook. Right now I'm slowly transitioning to digital budget planner, just because I think it's just easier and I don't have to bring my physical budget planner with me all the time. But I think I'm still used to writing things down though. But definitely once I come up with a plan, I also set goals. So what is your main priority for this year? Is it paying off loans? Is it saving up for a purchase, like for a wedding, for a car, for a house, or saving or fully funding your emergency fund? So there's definitely different goals that you would want to set for your finances, and it's important that you set them just because you are able to, look forward to something in the end, especially when you're doing like end of the month or end of the year summary of your finances. It's definitely important that you see if those goals are met or not, and then you can kind of reflect on what are the things that you did to improve them, or like what were your mistakes, and then what are the steps that you did to correct those mistakes. So yeah, that is definitely important when coming up with a plan for your budget. So definitely make sure to keep those in mind. So now that you have a plan, all you have to do is to execute that plan. Now you will, in this part of your budgeting, so now you will learn to establish the discipline to stick to that plan. So definitely don't be discouraged if it does not go according to your plan. Of course, there's gonna be hiccups along the way, and of course, life happens, and so also the world happens too, because you can't control whatever is happening outside your personal space. Like again, like the pandemic that we have, and then unfortunately we might even be in a war, which I really hope would not happen, right? So the important thing is that if you do experience those hiccups along the way, what's important is that you get back up and then you trust in the Lord that His ways are higher than your ways, and definitely try to assess the plan to see if there are some stuff that needs to be improved. Like, for example, your debt repayment does not cover the minimum monthly payment. Maybe you need to cut down on your costs or increase your sources of income. There's definitely ways on how you are gonna be able to, basically move on from these mistakes, to learn from these mistakes most especially. But what's important is that you are moving forward from where you were from. So yeah, that's really all I can say with regards to budgeting. I know this might sound a little bit of a cliche or maybe repetitive, and I know there's lots of people who have already discussed about budgeting, but these are the things that I basically implemented to start my financial journey or my debt freedom journey, and I hope that you have learned a thing or two from these. So yeah, with that said, I hope that you guys like my video. If you guys are interested to know more about these types of video, or if you guys are interested on how I do my finances, please click the thumbs up button, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and click the notification bell so that you guys will be notified as soon as I upload a new video. So with that said, I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!